that people speak up, because the military is putting enormous pressure. I mean, McChrystal's going around the world basically asking for people to support the troop escalation. They're leaking the reports and things like that. So I think there's a real opportunity, given that the administration now seems to be asking questions, to push back and to reach senators and reach members of the House.
And of course, there appear to be huge differences within the administration. You've got Vice President Joe Biden being very outspoken about his views on Afghanistan, and you've got General David Petraeus, who's in charge of the overall war effort in Iraq and Afghanistan, not yet endorsing General McChrystal's call for more troops. So there seems to be a lot of fluidity and debate going on among key people in the Obama administration as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's actually very encouraging, and not to be naive about it, but I believe there's an opportunity here to stop the military-industrial think tank complex in a way that we've never had before. It's easy to get into war. It's hard to get out. The more troops we put in, the harder it is. But now is a really pivotal moment. And if people, I think, speak up really loud and clear, and I can tell you, speaking to elected officials and their chiefs of staffs, there's such a concern and anxiety. They don't want to be pulled into this, and yet they don't know what to do.
Robert Greenwald, I want to turn to another clip of your film. This is about the costs of war in Afghanistan to the U.S. taxpayer.
In today's dollars, the amount that we spent per troop in World War II was $50,000. We're spending 10 times that per troop in Iraq. We can expect that the per troop cost in Afghanistan is higher than that. I would expect that it will be between 20 to 50% higher cost in upfront cost per troop.
Afghanistan is very difficult to supply, and it becomes much more expensive to ferry the stuff either through Pakistan or to come in the other way from Russia and through the Caucasus states.
The whole situation in terms of supply routes into Afghanistan is very, very different than it is in Iraq. Now, in Afghanistan, you have a country which is mostly rural, which is mostly mountainous, which is not desert.
Afghanistan is completely landlocked, and so what we've had to do is, up until now, we've been sending the majority of the supplies, for example, oil, through Pakistan.
We're opening up this alternate supply route that gets into Afghanistan from the north that requires the cooperation of Tajikistan, and several of the other stands on the northern border of Afghanistan. It's a much longer and tortuous, is going to be more expensive logistics route. So those costs are going to go up in a manner not commensurate with the numerical increase in troops, but above and beyond that.
Right now, the United States, through fiscal year 2009, will have committed and/or spent more than $185 billion on the U.S. war in Afghanistan.
I feel like we haven't done the right thing on our part. You know, we spend so much money over here, but we don't spend it the right way. We, you know, we have HESCO barriers shipped in from the United States. We probably pay more in the shipping to get that over here than we could pay local people to build a wall around this base.
These enormous funds that did go out to Afghanistan, but they were given, the money was given to contractors who subsequently subcontracted and subcontracted, and by the time you get to how much money reaches the ground, maybe 40 or 50% of that money actually reached the ground for the projects, because all these subcontractors were taking 10% off as profit.
Let me give you an example. The United States recently spent $160 million on building roads and digging wells and this sort of thing in one province here in Afghanistan. But the way that works is they're giving that $160 million to a preferred contractor who then goes and subcontracts this out to a local Afghan company. And the Afghan company will maybe get 10% of that. And everything in between is pocketed by that middle company. And so this is a massive amount of waste for American taxpayers, but also there's no oversight for the projects that are actually being constructed. I've talked to construction contractors that go and who are tasked with the job of building a well, for example, and they'll go and take a picture of some well out there that has already been built and show it to the Americans and say, this is a well that we've built. And they'll say, okay, thank you very much, and here's your money. There's no oversight, no accountability, nothing whatsoever.
Those wells, like those hand pump wells you see everywhere, how much you said that it's like $700 to $1,000 to build one of those. We've been paying like 10 grand per per well.
The local Afghans from rural communities, when they come to Kabul and they see these international consultants who drive in Toyota Land Cruisers, who live behind barbed wire and blast walls, who have, highly paid, security guards that have swimming pools, that are importing food from America, realizes and gets angry that the money that was supposed to be for them is actually going really to sustaining a Western lifestyle for foreign consultants, as opposed to providing them with sanitation and wheat and, local education.
That was Protap Chatterjee of Corp Watch in the new film Rethink Afghanistan. It's debuting here tonight in New York. It's by Robert Greenwald, the founder and president of Brave New Films. Talk about the different sections that we haven't played and the power of this, as well as people like Colin Powell, who visited Obama in the White House.
Well, one of the sections raises the whole question about, can troops solve the problem, which of course they can't. Look, Afghanistan
They can or they can't?
They cannot. It's a deeply troubled country, the third poorest country in the world. And the notion that we can solve militarily what our economic, social problems is absurd, and it's a fundamental flaw. So we have a whole section with a series of experts talking about the military not solving the problem, in fact making it worse. We have a whole section to break the myth that somehow the United States went to war in Afghanistan to protect the feminist revolution, with women in Afghanistan who we interviewed talking about the fact that they despise the Taliban, but the foreign troops make their life equally bad, and how bad it is under the Karzai government. And then a section on security, which goes to the fundamental issue, because the only justification for the war is it's going to make us safer. And we have former CIA experts and other experts saying, no, this is a policy that is possibly even going to make us less safe, which goes to the argument of those who believe in the war. So between each of the sections of the film, we try to cover the core spectrum of the questions with over 100 people we've interviewed, and then lots of footage we shot and have shot in Afghanistan. And the other thing we did, we made a commitment to, one of the many tragedies with the Iraq War, that we're never the face or the voices of the Iraq people. So in the film, you'll see constantly that we're talking and interviewing and having represented the people in Afghanistan who we're, quote, going to save, but who are not asking us to come in and save them with military means.
And in terms of the security issue, we were in the discussion we had earlier before we came on the broadcast. You were talking about how key policymakers are not distinguishing, as you were able to, between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda as targets in Afghanistan. Could you talk about that some?
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to me that they're clearly two different organizations. And when I was there, and I met on the day I was leaving, I was interviewing former Taliban who were turning in their guns. And they are a nationalist organization, an organization that has done some terrible things, but a nationalist organization. They're not an organization about international terrorism. And many of the Taliban despise Al-Qaeda. So the notion that we've mixed these two together, and it came out in the paper today, and in the review they had yesterday, people from the administration were asking McChrystal this question, who doesn't seem to differentiate between the two. That's a tragic major flaw, and the security experts in the security section talk about that over and over and over again. Al-Qaeda is a small group, they do, terrorist group. How do you get them? Well, do you occupy an entire country to find a few people? Petraeus has said Al-Qaeda's not in Afghanistan. Well, Petraeus is saying that, what the hell are we doing there?
We're going to leave it there, and I want to thank you, Robert Greenwald. Where is your film debuting tonight in New York?
It's at the Quad Theater. It'll be there all week with The Nation, Alternate, Madre, Credo co-sponsoring it. But most important is to get a copy online and have a screening yourself. This is a time that people can do something. We can't look back, throw our hands up in the air and say we didn't try hard enough. We can affect policy and we can affect the elected officials. It's not going to be easy, but the film is meant to be an organizing tool, and I hope people will use that.
Robert Greenwald is the founder and president of Brave New Films. He produced, directed the film Rethink Afghanistan, has recently returned from Afghanistan. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. When we come back, Pittsburgh. Stay with us.